Thank you very much for the warm words of introduction. And Ephraim, thank you very much for arranging this kindness, a gathering for Eretz Yisrael. And thank you for all who, I don't know exactly, I'm sure there were a number of people who helped arrange. And thank you for your Avodas Hashem. And thank you for those who came and made the time to hear about Eretz Yisrael and to hear, hopefully, chizuk about what we can do and about what we may be able to do even better than we are already. There is a Gemara in Seita, Daf Hey, that says, Amrev Chizdo, v'itema mar ukva, kol adam, sheyesh by gasus haruach, Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ein ani v'hu, yechoylin lodur ba'olam. Chizdo says, a person with gava, a person who is conceited, Hashem says about that person, I can't be with this person. I can't live with this person. This is too much for me. Kav yochel, Hashem says, can't live with him. It's very hard to understand this Gemara. If you see in that Gemara, by the way, in Seita, it's over and over different statements about how horrible Ubris is to be a conceited person. But this is maybe the most dramatic statement in that entire Gemara. Hashem can't live with a person who has gava, who's a haughty person. It's very hard to understand. I mean, good. It's not good to be conceited. The Gemara doesn't say that about a murderer. The Gemara doesn't say it about violent people, immoral people. Hashem can't live with that person. All of a sudden, the person's conceited, that's it. That's the worst thing. Hashem can't live with that person. How could it be? It can't be in the world. How does that work? There's a Gemara in Brochus that says, another famous Gemara, which I'm sure you've heard and said maybe hundreds of times. Tanya, Reb Shimon bar Yochai Omer, Sholosh matonos Tova nosan HaKadosh Baruch Hu liYisrael, vekulon lo nitnu ala yidei Yisurin, ve'elu heim, Torah, ve'etz Yisrael, ve'elam haba. How many times have you said or have you heard, we're going through something hard, it's hard to adjust, because Eretz Yisrael niknes b'Yisurim based on this Gemara in Brachos. The purpose of Yisurim, of suffering, of a hard time, is not that Hashem wishes us to suffer. There is no purpose in the suffering itself. The suffering is by definition a means to an end. If we have suffering, that means there's some purpose, some greater purpose, which Hashem wants us to reach. By having Yisurim, one of the basic things that happens to a person is that it removes gaiva. If a person suffers, he's on the top of the world, he loses his money. That's Yisurim. He was a mover and shaker in the business world, and now he's not. So those Yisurim remove his gava. All of us who have zocha to have children, when they suffer and we need to fight for them or work for them and everything, it removes gava. And how many people, when they're teenagers, and myself, my friends, my wife, her friends, anybody, before they have children, they know everything, how it works. And then you have children. It's not as simple. It removes gava. A person thinks they know. Hashem says, I'm going to throw a wrench in the works. You're not going to be so sure of yourself. Yisurim, the purpose of Yisurim, one of the primary purposes. There's other purposes as well. One of the primary purposes of Yisurim, especially what we call Yisurim Shal Ava, which is also in that Gemara in Brachos. When Hashem is showing love, what do you mean? I'm suffering. Hashem wants to remove our gava. Hashem wants us to be removed from our haughtiness, which removes ourselves from Him. And therefore, these three things, Torah, Eretz Yisrael, and Olam Haba, can only be acquired through Yisurim. What does that mean? The Shekhinah is there when a person learns Torah. A person learns Torah, the Shekhinah is there. Chazal say, even one person learning Torah, well, has the Shekhinah there. Hashem Shekhinah is there with that person. One person. When it comes to Tefillah, Minyan, you need 10. Torah, one person, the Shekhinah is already there. Olam Haba, obviously, that's what Olam Haba is. The essence, if one wants to understand the essence of Olam Haba and what he can experience in the world to come, it is the feeling of enjoyment of being with the Shekhinah. And then we have Eretz Yisrael. Why in the world did we move to Eretz Yisrael? Different reasons, different people. Ultimately, a person moves to Eretz Yisrael because they recognize that the Shekhinah is here. Hashem Shekhinah. What makes Eretz Yisrael special? More special than I came from Philadelphia. What makes Eretz Yisrael more special than Philadelphia? Because the Shekhinah is here. Hashem, Kaviochel, is more present in Eretz Yisrael than anywhere else. It's wonderful. It's the biggest bracha, and it's simultaneously the biggest obligation, the biggest achrayus to live in Eretz Yisrael. Chas v'sholom, a person does an aveira in Philadelphia, it's bad. A person does something wrong in Eretz Yisrael, it's much worse. The Shekhinah is here. On the other hand, a mitzvah done, it's great. We did a mitzvah in Philadelphia, that's wonderful. He did a mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael. That's unbelievable. Wow. The Shekhinah is here. You did a mitzvah in the Mokim with Hashros HaShekhinah. That's unbelievable. But it can't be with Gava. It's not a consequence. It isn't that the person who is a haughty person is worse than the murderer. Obviously not. But what's ironic is that the murderer can be aware of God. It's interesting when the Gemara talks about a case, like for example in Gemara Makis, is a whole complicated case of when the witnesses came and they're testifying about a murder that they didn't see but somebody else saw. The Gemara assumes that the murder either happens, the Gemara gives a bunch of examples. The murder happened on Friday, Thursday, Sunday, Monday, not Shabbos. The assumption is that the murder didn't happen on Shabbos. The guy's a murderer, but he's not going to kill on Shabbos. He has some Yiras Hashem. He's not going to kill on Shabbos. The person with Gava does not have Yiras Hashem. That's the essence of Gava. I am somebody. There's no room, therefore, for the Eibishter. There's no room for Hashem. If he has no room for Hashem, then he cannot properly learn Torah. The purpose of Torah is to connect to that Shekhinah. But if I'm it, if I know and I have my own gaiva, then I cannot connect to Hashem through Torah. And the only way I'm going to be able to connect to Hashem by learning, unfortunately, will have to be with Yisurim. I'll have to remove my gaiva. Hashem wants to connect. Yidula, I want to connect with you, but you're too haughty. I'm going to have to give you patch so that you get over yourself, so that we can connect through Torah. Olam Haba, a person with Gava who goes to Olam Haba, it's a wasted experience. Lo yaleinu, but a person who after 120 years goes up to Elam Haba, and he's still full of, it's a very scary thing, by the way. But a person could die if he doesn't work on his midas, then those same character traits will make him suffer in the world to come. There can be no greater Gehenna than that. He goes to Elam Haba, the Shechina is there, but he thought he was something so special. Now he cannot experience Elam Haba. Achin vei. Eretz Yisrael is the same thing. You're here, living here in Eretz Yisrael. Every moment you're in Eretz Yisrael, you're living in the United States, you're living in Canada, you're living in Australia. Nebach, you have gaiva, but you can still live there. If you live in Eretz Yisrael and you have gava, Hashem unfortunately has to give petch over and over. Because you're there with the Shechina, you're living there, you're in his house, in his home, and you have gava, that means you're not aware of Hashem. Oh, then we have to remove the gaiva. That's Eretz Yisrael niknes b'yisurim. It's not just the difficulties that are inherent in going to a new country. That you could go anywhere in the world and have difficulties. You have a new culture, you have different, moving to Japan must be very hard, right? If you're American, move to Japan, it's a whole different mindset. That's not the niknes b'yisurim. The niknes b'yisurim is bedavka because the gava has to be removed from the person in order they can live in Hashem's home with the Shechina, because if he has gava, he doesn't recognize Hashem. To the extent he's about gava, to that extent he doesn't recognize Hashem. So, there's another thing we could do. We could try to work on ourselves. Now, we're human beings. Human beings suffer from gava. That's one of their little babies. They have their needs. They're the center of attention. They must be. We struggle with conceitedness. How can we possibly say we as human beings will at least try to work on our gava so that we can stay with the Shechina constantly, ständig, constantly be with the Shechina? There is, we said, unfortunately very often, this capital of Tehillim during the war. It's always wonderful to say Tehillim, but the cause was unfortunate. In Kuf Chaf Aleph, Shel Amalos, Esa Einay Elohorim Me'ayin Yovei Ezri. Me'ayin Yovei Ezri, the simple understanding is, from where, from whence will my salvation, will my assistance come? Me'ayin Yovei Ezri. The Baal Shem Tov famously said, and his Talmidim built on this concept, Me'ayin is the same word as ayin, aleph yod nun. From nothing will come my salvation. What does that mean? If a person recognizes that he himself, meaning his physical chomer, is nothing, then Hashem can save him. Me'ayin Yovei Ezri. If a person can say that I myself recognize my physical self, which is the cause of this unhealthy gava, whatever it is. Again, the person who has the money, my physical self, I got money, I'm in the physical world, I'm getting money, I am handsome, I am strong, I am healthy. That's all physical. That's where gava is. I have a better job. My husband has a better job, better kids, whatever it is. Me'ayin Yovei Ezri, if a person says, all that is nothing, Yovei Ezri, then he can be assisted from Hashem. He doesn't need Yisurim. So then the question is, how do you do that? It sounds great, yeah? Good. I recognize that, it's wonderful. How do you do that? How can I come to be a person who says, you know what, my gashmius, it's not important. I'm living, I'm breathing, I need to go to the doctor when I'm sick. How am I going to ignore my physical needs, my physical self? Me'ayin Yovei Ezri. How am I going to say that's not what's important? So there's another famous Gemara, which you've also always have heard many times. Rashi quotes this Gemara. Shloisha, it's a Gemara in Nida and a Gemara in Kiddushin. Shloisha shutvim yesh ba'odam. 3 partners in every person. Every person, babies born, Mazel Tov Baruch Hashem. There were many Jewish babies born in here in Israel today. Mazel Tov. Those babies. Shloisha shutvim ba'odam. There's 3 partners in the person. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Aviv ve'imai. Hashem, his father, his mother. Those are the partners in a person. Okay. The Gemara goes at length to describe what physical attributes come from the DNA of the father, what physical aspects come from the mother. Okay, great. Then the Gemara says a whole list of things that come from Hashem himself. Can't come from the father, can't come from the mother, only from Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu noisein, first of all, Ruach v'neshama. Ruach, that which enables the neshama to express itself. That's probably the easiest way to understand Ruach. Ruach is the way that my neshama, I can talk, for example. Maybe also hearing, that's Ruach. And from that the neshama can interact with the world. I have my face, my features, perhaps a certain shine to the face. My eyes can see, my ears can hear, I can talk, I can walk, bina and haskel, I can understand and educate myself. All that comes from Hashem. When it comes the time for that person to die, HaKadosh Baruch Hu noitel chelkai, Hashem says, that's it. I'm taking mine back. I'll leave the other parts there. That's still there, no problem. What the father gave, what the mother gave, that's still there, no problem. I'm just taking mine back. My third, so to speak. He's dead. There's nothing there. It's just an empty body. Can't talk, can't hear, can't walk, can't think. We see in the end, as wonderful it is that the father and the mother gave a physical self to this child, on its own it's worthless. The only thing of value that the human being possesses is that which comes from Hashem's partnership with his parents. That's the only thing of value that he has. Oh, now a person can understand. Me'ayin. Person can understand. Where am I having gava from? What am I? What is my physical self? My physical self without Hashem is worthless. It has no value. It might be impressive, but I can't do anything with it. I can only do something with myself if Hashem puts in his part. May I in Yovei Ezri, I can recognize, Hashem, you're the one who gave me this, everything I have is from you. How could I be a Baal Gava? How could I think to myself, wow, I'm impressive. You're nothing. You know how you're something? Because in Parashas Bereshis we say that a person has a Tzelem Elokim. He has an image of Hashem himself. Tzelem Elokim. We say in Eov that every person in Sefer Eov, we say that every person is a Chelek Eloka Mimao. He is a part of Hashem. That's who you are. There is a concept called Gava de Kedusha. There is such a concept. What does that mean? I am so proud of being connected to Hashem himself. That's Gava de Kedusha. I have a Tzelem Elokim. You know who I am? Hashem gave me of his own Kedusha. Every single Jew has a Jewish neshama, which means it's an integral part of God himself. You are a Tselem Elokim. You have the image of Hashem on you. In that way I can have Gava de Kedusha. In that way I can be a person who is remarkable. But I'm only remarkable because I'm connected to Hashem. That type of pride is only healthy. That only connects. It is only beautiful. Hashem, I can daven to you. Hashem, I can learn your Torah. Hashem, I can do chesed to your children. I have a child. He's your child. I can't give him much. You give him everything. I can do chesed with your children. I can experience your chesed because of my connection to you. That a person can be immensely proud of. I am so happy and joyful that I can have this connection to Hashem. May I in Yovei Ezri, if I can leave behind my own gava, which is worthless, what am I? Yovei Ezri. Then I can be a healthy person. Then I can experience Hashem himself. So when we live in Eretz Yisrael, as B'Chaim said earlier, we're here to talk about Eretz Yisrael. We live in Eretz Yisrael. We're here in Eretz Yisrael. A remarkable privilege that at every moment, like Chazal say, I walk 6 feet, approximately, I get a mitzvah. Why? Because I'm here with the Shekhinah. I'm experiencing the Shekhinah. My neshama is connected. We can feel so connected at all times. This neshama, this heilige neshama that I have, can be connected to Hashem at every single moment here in Eretz Yisrael. Unbelievable. If we stop and think about it, don't waste the opportunity. There are headaches in a different country, in a different language, a different culture. If we can but take time every day to say, my neshama will the same way if you learn Torah well. Anybody's learned the Black Gemara well, or learned the Ramban well, knows the experience of feeling connected to Hashem. Anybody who's davened well can feel connected. A person can feel that just by living in Eretz Yisrael, as soon as they remove their gava. Then he'll feel, wow, I'm in Hashem's home. This is true on our individual level, each of us as an individual, and we see how true it is on a klal level. It's a remarkable and difficult premise, the state of Israel. You have a government of Jews, right? Difficulty number 1. Difficulty number 2, those Jews are in a neighborhood where nobody wants them. And that was known before they started. Hashem says, you see the same thing. You are doing something remarkable. Jews living in Eretz Yisrael. That's unbelievable. That's great. That is amazing. You're living in Haaretz Yisrael. Wow. Hashem is so happy. But not with Gava. You're not going to be able to have a country like every other country. Everybody's going to see you in some sort of twisted, strange way. Judge you differently than every other country in the world. You're going to feel that you're powerful and you made great strides, but ultimately you feel like you have to answer to some president who's thousands of miles away. Him and a bunch of other people. If you have Gava, it's not going to work. Hashem makes sure we can see. I say often that if somebody doubts the existence of God, just look at the way the media in the world views Israel versus any other country. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. Any other country, right? We ourselves saw a year and a half ago. Any other country is attacked like that. No, We forget about North Korea. We forget about Syria. We forget all the African countries. Israel, those are the apartheid fanatic people. Does it make any sense? No, it makes no sense whatsoever. You know why? Because God runs the world. And God says, you are going to live in my country. I want you there, not with your gava. Not being conceited. You are not independent. There's no such thing as an independent state of Jews. You know why? Because you're mine. You're not independent from me. As long as we know that we're dependent on the Eibishter, which is obvious. Just the fact, even those who say, look at the IDF, it's wonderful, there's people being Ma'aser Nefesh, absolutely. The fact that it's there is not a miracle. The fact that we're here is not a miracle. The fact that Hashem helps us every moment in the worst neighborhood on the planet. We have the privilege of seeing with our own eyes. Hashem guides us every moment, and if we but say, yes, we know, Eibishter, you're right, it's your country. We are yours, we're not independent. Then every moment we will be given every bracha of Hashem. Every moment we will experience every single bracha, every single divine bracha that there is. And so this we can get from our Eretz Yisrael. We can get chizuk from Eretz Yisrael, we can feel Hashem's presence in Eretz Yisrael, so that at every single moment we can feel this connection to Him. And again, I thank you all for coming and for arranging and for being here in Eretz Yisrael. It's the greatest nachas we can give Hashem and the greatest source of bracha that we can bring into the world.